A gentle resolve filled me the day I decided to support my husband in a new way. Every week, he would drive to his parents' house, helping with chores and bringing them my homemade preserves. One day, I wanted to surprise them and deliver the food myself, without telling anyone. As I approached the house, I froze. Sarah loved order. In this predictability, she found comfort, a quiet haven where she could shelter from the storms of the outside world. Her apartment, with bookshelves lined with literary classics and the scent of freshly baked bread, was a reflection of her love for harmony and structure. She taught literature at the university, immersing herself in the worlds of Tolstoy and Dostoevsky, finding answers to life's eternal questions in their works. Adam, her husband, was her complete opposite, an engineer, a man of precise sciences. He lived in a world of blueprints and calculations. But this difference didn't divide them. Rather, it complemented them. Sarah valued his reliability, his ability to solve problems, and his quiet but sincere care. Adam, in turn, admired her intuition, her refined sense of beauty, and her ability to find joy in simple things. Every Sunday, Adam would drive to his parents' village. It was an unspoken ritual, a part of their shared life. He helped with household tasks, fixed fences, and tended the garden. Sarah always packed him a bag of food, jars of homemade pickles, soup, cutlets, and pies. She knew Adam's parents loved her cooking, and it brought her joy to do something kind for them. Adam would return in the evening, a bit tired but content. He'd tell her about his parents, village gossip, and the weather. Sarah listened, nodded, and asked questions. These Sunday trips were like a small journey to another world for them, a world of silence, peace, and simple pleasures. Sarah observed her husband. Lately, he seemed preoccupied. It wasn't that he was less attentive to her. He still brought her coffee in the morning. He asked about her day and read her poetry before bed, but there was a shadow in his eyes, something unspoken. He often stared out the window as if waiting for something or someone. She attributed it to exhaustion or stress from work. Adam was working on an important project. She knew it drained him. She tried to surround him with care and attention, hoping it would help him through his struggles. One Saturday morning, Sarah woke up with an unusual feeling, a desire to surprise him. She decided to drive to his parents' house alone, without warning. She wanted to see them, breathe the fresh air, and escape the city's hustle while Adam was busy with work. She got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and opened the fridge. There were jars of pickles she'd made the previous week. She took them out, placed them on the table, and began packing a bag. She added a few apple pies, some pilaf, and homemade sausage. She knew Adam's parents loved these treats. They had always been delighted by her visits, praising her cooking and asking about her work. Sarah imagined arriving there surprised and happy faces. She smiled. She loved making surprises, loved seeing joy in others' eyes. She dressed, putting on comfortable jeans and a warm jacket, and glanced out the window. It was sunny but chilly outside. She decided to wear a scarf as well. She grabbed the bag of food, her car keys, and stepped outside. Their old Neva was parked by the entrance. Sarah opened the trunk and carefully loaded the bag, making sure nothing would break. Once done, she got behind the wheel and started the car. The engine roared to life, and the Neva pulled away. Sarah drove out of the city, heading down the highway toward the village. She drove calmly, unhurried, enjoying the scenery outside: fields, forests, rivers. It all seemed so beautiful and serene to her. The drive to the village took about 2 hours. Sarah turned on the radio and sang along to the songs, her heart light with anticipation. She felt happy and free, the wind in her hair and the golden autumn landscape unfolding outside the car window. Along the way, she imagined how she'd surprise Adam's parents, picturing their joyful faces and the way they always praised her food. Memories of past Sunday lunches drifted through her mind, snippets of conversation, laughter, and inside jokes that once made her feel part of something enduring. These trips had always been more than errands. They were rituals that wove the generations together, strengthening the fragile threads of family. The familiar roads seemed to glow beneath the sun, trees dressed in gold, their leaves casting intricate patterns on the asphalt. Sarah switched the radio to soft classical music, letting the gentle melodies fill the car and her heart. She felt certain this day would be special, filled with warmth and love. A memory to cherish. She could never have imagined the storm of emotions that awaited her at journey's end. As the village came into view, Sarah's heart beat faster. She turned onto the dirt road leading to Adam's parents' house. Though she hadn't visited in a while, she recognized the small wooden cottage immediately, a home with carved window frames and a garden still bursting with late blooms. She parked by the gate, anticipation fluttering in her chest. But what she saw on the porch made her freeze. There stood Adam, his arms around an unfamiliar woman. In her arms was a child, a little boy, no older than 5. Adam was speaking to the woman, and she smiled at him, a smile that spoke of more than friendship. There was intimacy, warmth, and tenderness in their exchange, something Sarah hadn't seen in Adam's eyes for a long time. The ground seemed to slip from beneath her feet. Her head buzzed, her vision blurred. She tried to step forward to call out his name, but her voice caught in her throat. She stood paralyzed, unable to believe what she was seeing. The boy broke free from the woman's arms and ran to Adam, wrapping his arms around Adam's legs and looking up at him with adoration. Adam crouched down, hugging the boy and gently ruffling his hair. In that moment, Sarah saw a love and tenderness in Adam's eyes that she had never known. Shocked, she stumbled back, her world spinning. This was not a random meeting, not a fleeting affair. This was Adam's other life. Unable to watch any longer, Sarah rushed back to the car. She slammed the door shut, her hands trembling as she started the engine. Tears blurred her vision as she turned the car around and sped away. She drove blindly, tears streaming down her face, one thought pulsing in her mind. How could he? How could he do this to me? She felt betrayed, deceived, utterly broken. Everything she believed in, her entire happy life, crumbled in an instant. She recalled their first meeting, their wedding, their plans for the future. It all felt like a lie now, a cruel deception. She wondered when it had started, when Adam had begun living a double life. Had she been so blind that she hadn't noticed the signs? Gradually, the shock faded, replaced by a deep, burning hurt. Rage began to boil inside her. She wanted to turn back, to confront Adam and tell him exactly what she thought of him. But fear held her back. Fear of hearing the truth. Fear that all her suspicions would be confirmed. Memories flashed through her mind. His frequent trips to his parents, his late returns, his recent detachment. Each moment, once insignificant, now seemed to fit together into a single, horrific picture. Sarah pulled over to the side of the road, burying her face in her hands as sobs racked her body. It felt as though her heart had shattered into 1,000 pieces, never to be whole again. She sat there for a long time, until her tears dried and her anger began to subside. In the silence, a single thought emerged, fragile but insistent. What now? She knew she couldn't just let it go. The need to uncover the truth, to understand what lay behind Adam's secret, pressed on her chest like a weight. Gathering her strength, Sarah started the car and drove back to the city, her mind swirling with questions and pain. She resolved not to make a scene, not to scream or accuse. Instead, she would try to stay calm and listen to Adam, to understand what had happened before making any decisions. The drive home felt endless, the silence inside the car echoing her turmoil. She played out the conversation in her mind, wondering what Adam would say, what she herself would say. She knew it would be the hardest conversation of her life, but in the end, Sarah chose a different approach. A few days later, she returned to the village, not as a betrayed wife, but as a casual acquaintance. She mustered the strength to concoct a story. She was supposedly interested in local architecture and old houses. It was absurd, but it gave her a reason to be there. This time, she didn't hide. She parked by the roadside, took a deep breath, and walked toward the house, her heart pounding so loudly it seemed the whole street could hear it. At the gate stood the woman Elena, the same one she'd seen with Adam. "Hello," Sarah said quietly, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I heard you have a very interesting house." Julia looked at her closely, her gaze lacking hostility or surprise, only a quiet weariness. "Come in," she said, opening the gate. "I'm Elena." Sarah introduced herself with a fake name, Irina. They entered the house, which was clean and simple inside, filled with the scent of freshly baked bread and baby formula. In the corner, a boy was playing. "This is Victor," Julia said, introducing the child. The boy looked at Sarah with curiosity, but didn't approach. "Nice to meet you," Sarah replied, forcing herself not to stare. They sat at the kitchen table, and Julia offered tea, which Sarah accepted. In the silence, as Julia poured boiling water, Sarah studied her. Nothing extraordinary, just an ordinary woman, tired but with kind eyes. Not a femme fatale, not a homewrecker, just a mother. "Have you lived here long?" Sarah asked, trying to keep the conversation going. "A couple of years," Julia replied. "And Adam, he comes often?" Sarah's question hung in the air. Julia set the cups on the table. "He comes every Sunday, helps with chores. He helps me and Victor." Sarah felt a lump in her throat. "I saw you with him a few days ago. I'm his wife." Julia was silent, looking at Sarah with a strange understanding. "I see," she said finally. "Adam didn't tell you?" Sarah shook her head. "No, I had no idea." Silence fell, broken only by the ticking of the clock. "Why?" Sarah asked, breaking the silence. "Why didn't he tell me?" "You'd have to ask him," Julia replied. "But I think he was afraid of losing you." "And you? Do you love him?" Sarah's voice trembled. Julia gave a sad smile. "I loved him once, deeply, but that was a long time ago. Now we just share responsibility for Victor. Nothing more. Adam comes as a father, as a friend, but not as a man. There's nothing between us anymore." Sarah wasn't sure whether to believe her. "And he loves Victor more than life itself," Julia added, glancing at her son. "He's a wonderful father, always caring for him, helping. Victor adores him." Sarah looked at the boy, who was playing with a toy car, humming to himself. Suddenly he looked up and met Sarah's gaze. There was no fear or hostility in his eyes, only curiosity. Sarah smiled at him, and he returned a shy smile. "And Adam, is he happy?" Sarah asked, looking away. Julia sighed. "I don't know. It's hard for him. He's torn between two lives. He wants to be honest but can't. He's afraid of hurting you. He's afraid of losing Victor. And what about me? Doesn't he think about how much this hurts me?" "He does, but he hoped you'd never find out, that he could keep this secret." "Naive," Sarah whispered. "Maybe, but he didn't do it out of malice. He was just trying to do right by everyone." The truth, as Sarah saw it now, was not a simple story of betrayal, but a tangled web of fear, responsibility, and longing. A family in all its flawed humanity, caught between love and the impossibility of having it all. Sarah's mind churned with questions that cut to the core of her pain. Is it right to lie for years, to hide the truth, to live a double life? Is that right, or is it just cowardice? The weight of betrayal pressed on her, and when she looked into Elena's eyes and asked, "Why are you telling me all this?" Julia answered simply, "Because I see you're in pain, and because I want you to know the truth. Adam is a good man. He doesn't deserve to be hated. He's just lost." "Aren't you afraid I'll take him away from you?" Sarah asked, her voice trembling. Julia shook her head. "No, I know you won't, and even if you did, I wouldn't hold him by force. The main thing is that Victor is happy. The rest will follow." Sarah fell silent, the question echoing in her heart. Can happiness be built on deception? She didn't know. Inside, two opposing emotions battled: anger and understanding, hurt and forgiveness. "Thank you," she said at last, standing up. "Thank you for the tea and the truth." "You're welcome," Julia replied softly. "If you want to talk, I'm always here." Stepping outside, Sarah was greeted by fresh air and bright sun, but her heart remained dark and troubled. She drove home, needing time to think, to figure out what to do next. At home, Adam waited, sitting on the couch with his head bowed. When he saw Sarah, he stood up. "Where were you?" he asked, his eyes filled with fear and hope. I was with Elena, she replied. Adam paled but didn't deny anything. He spoke for a long time, haltingly, as if justifying himself to himself about Elena, about their brief romance before he met Sarah, about Victor's birth, about how he couldn't abandon his child, about his sense of responsibility, about how he was afraid to tell Sarah and afraid of losing her. I knew I was being despicable, he said, head bowed. I lied to you, but I didn't see another way. I didn't want to hurt you, Sarah. I swear I never stopped loving you. Sarah was silent, searching for the truth in his eyes. She saw remorse, pain, but also a stubborn resolve. He had made his choice, and it wasn't just about him. That night passed in silence. They lay on their respective sides of the bed, a chasm between them. Sarah couldn't sleep. Her mind swirled with thoughts and memories, their life, their love, their plans for the future. It all seemed fragile now, unreal. She didn't know what she felt: anger, hurt, disappointment, or something more complex and profound. In the morning, Adam left for work, leaving Sarah alone. She wandered the apartment like a ghost. Everything felt foreign, unfamiliar, even the books on her shelves. She stood by the window and watched the world go on as if nothing had happened. People rushing to work, children playing, birds singing in the trees, while her own life had collapsed in an instant. Sarah remembered Elena's words about Adam being a good father. Sarah wasn't sure whether to believe her, but something in Elena's voice and gaze suggested she was telling the truth. Sarah knew she needed time to think, to make a decision. She couldn't simply forgive Adam, but she couldn't just leave him either. Too much bound them. Too much had been invested in their relationship. The next day, Sarah told Adam she needed to leave, to be alone and think things through. Adam didn't try to stop her. He understood she had that right. Sarah went to a different village, not to Adam's parents, but to an old dacha she owned. She spent several days there, walking in the forest, reading, reflecting on her life. She recalled their first meeting, their wedding, their early years together. Everything had been so good, so calm, so reliable. Could it all have been a lie? Had Adam been living a double life all these years? Sarah struggled to believe it. She had always known Adam as an honest, decent man. How could he have done this to her? But then she remembered Elena's words, how Adam didn't want to hurt her, how he feared losing her, how he did it all for Victor. And Sarah began to understand, if only a little. Sarah's experience reflects the deep psychological and emotional turmoil. Discovering a partner's betrayal often triggers a cascade of emotions: anger, hurt, confusion, and profound loss. Many people, like Sarah, experience symptoms similar to post-traumatic stress, including anxiety, depression, and a sense of unreality. The pain can linger, affecting self-esteem, trust, and the ability to move forward. Healing from such a wound takes time, and the path forward is rarely clear or easy. Sarah's need for solitude, her struggle to process the truth, and the complexity of her emotions. Sarah realized that Adam's betrayal wasn't about seeking excitement or passion elsewhere. He wasn't cheating in the traditional sense. Instead, he was fulfilling his duty as a father, trying to do right by his child from a previous relationship. But that didn't make the deception any less painful. The core of her anguish was not just about another woman, but about being denied the truth, about having her trust broken and her right to honest partnership taken away. Research shows that the pain of betrayal, whether physical, emotional, or rooted in secrecy, can be just as severe, often triggering symptoms of anxiety, depression, and even post-traumatic stress. The emotional impact doesn't depend solely on the nature of the infidelity, but on the breach of trust and the shattering of one's sense of security. Sarah knew she stood at a crossroads. She could leave Adam and start anew, try to forgive him and pretend nothing had happened, or attempt to truly understand him and the burden he had carried all these years. Each path would require her to confront her own pain, pride, and the reality that Adam, like all people, was deeply flawed. Healing after such a betrayal is a long, complex process, often involving a roller coaster of emotions. Recovery is not linear. It demands honest communication, time, and a willingness to rebuild trust from the ground up. One morning, Sarah woke with clarity. She decided to return to Adam not out of blind forgiveness, but with the resolve to face the truth together. She told him, "I know everything. I understand." Adam, overwhelmed with relief and remorse, promised to do whatever it took to rebuild what was broken. Sarah made it clear, "That doesn't mean I've forgotten. It doesn't mean I've forgiven. We'll need to work hard to rebuild trust. We'll need to learn to live differently." Adam agreed, ready to face the consequences of his choices if it meant keeping Sarah by his side. Together, they visited Julia and Victor. Sarah's gesture of bringing homemade pastries symbolizing her willingness to accept the reality of Adam's other family and to move forward without bitterness. The visit was awkward and uncertain, but it marked the first step toward healing. Sarah felt uneasy, yet also relieved. She was choosing her own path, refusing to let pain alone define her future. Sarah's journey is a testament to the complexity of forgiveness and the resilience required to rebuild after betrayal. While the scars of infidelity can run deep, affecting self-esteem, trust, and emotional well-being, some couples find ways to grow, adapt, and even strengthen their bond through honesty, empathy, and shared effort. Sarah's story shows that recovery is possible, but it demands courage, self-reflection, and a commitment to facing the truth, no matter how painful.